people didn't know what giraffes looked like because they're in Africa and people in Europe didn't travel as much as they do now. So when you're looking at the taxonomy of animals, the scientists sometimes will get a preconceived idea of where an animal belongs in the world and what its family should be. And they will try to make the animal fit. And you find that with a lot of people, the animal has to fit into their preconceived notion of what an animal should be. These guys didn't really fit into anybody's preconceived notion, and it's taken years for the giraffes and their cousins, the okapi, to get into their own spot to be exactly where they belong. Because everybody kept saying, but what if we put them into this group or that group because they've got this and that and the next thing? So way back in the day, going back about to 1600 or so, what they did is they had people who had been around, and they thought, okay, we can describe a giraffe to somebody, and that's how we come up with the camel and the leopard name. So the Camelopardalis and all this, and that's what they sort of named them. And they said it's got the body of a panther, spots on it, and it's got this long neck, and it's got a camel's head and horns. And this is what they said that they looked like. Now, doesn't this look exactly like our giraffes? I mean, they were really good in about 1600. For somebody who's never seen one before, they got the tail, they got the spotted body, the long legs, and all that. It's pretty good. It looks sort of like a long goat to me, but. And eventually, they came up with this idea that maybe the giraffes were different. So what they've now done is they have reclassified giraffes, and they came up with this Camelopardalis name. They changed the name to an Arabic name, or at least one that comes from Arabic, called Giraffa. And so now it's Giraffa Camelopardalis, which is one type, but we're looking at Maasai giraffes, and they're named after a German guy who was a scientist, and his name was von Tippelskirch, which is, yeah, in German it's probably a lot easier to say. So now we have our giraffe is called Tippelskirchi. All that they do for a name is that if your name is Smith and you discover an animal, they will call it Smithy. They just put an I on it. It sounds very scientific for some reason. They used to call them Giraffa camelopardalis, something or other. So we would have had Giraffa camelopardalis, Tippelskirchi, and now it's just Giraffa Tippelskirchi. I think now they're being a lot better at trying to look at the characteristics of the animal and classify it, as opposed to trying to take the characteristics and throw it into a preconceived classification. And now, of course, they're looking at the DNA, the chromosomes, and everything. And so that's why we've now come down from about, 14 types of giraffes to 4, because they're looking at all the genetics, the chromosomes, the whole thing. And once they start analyzing them on that level, they're discovering that there's more similarities between them than there are differences to make 14. So now we're down to 4. So there we go. So that is my little foray into science. I'm not going to get too deeply into it because I know that we're not all scientists, and what we really like to look at is the big giraffe beak.